Stream Elements says a dog door is now live. Streaming DCS World, FA18-C Lessons.
Yeah, it's 069 Dog Door, reppin' 56 OG. In the skies we fly, we laugh and defy gravity. Virtual operations, wall bugs, no fear. With the boys we deploy, keeping enemies clear. Yeah, Captain, my captain, 125 chaos reigns. Elite squadron on deck, never breaking the chains. We're with 24 scud via FA18-C DCS jet, zooming, taking targets askew. It's a death from above, 069 Dog Door, in the sky we shove. Riding high with my crew, flying so free, 56 OG, the elite family. Yo, it's a death from above, 069 Dog Door, in the sky we shove. Riding high with my crew, flying so free, 56 OG, the elite family. ARs lock and low, missiles let it we stand. Strike hard, strike fast, conquer every command. From dawn till dusk, we live the dream. In digital battles, we reign supreme. ARs lock and low, missiles.
Welcome to this training on starting up the FA18. In some missions, you will find yourself in a cold and dark FA18 that you will need to bring to life. While this can be a rather long process as described in the manual, you can also enable the auto start function. However, for this lesson, we'll review the full startup procedure. Press spacebar when you're ready to get started.
Move the battery switch to the up or on position with a right mouse button click.
The FA18 has two fire detection circuits, A and B, that test for fire in the engine's auxiliary power unit and bleed air system. Before we go into detail on that though, check that the hydraulic brake pressure gauge for the wheel brakes shows at least 3000 psi. Confirm this by looking at the gauge, which is located to the left and up from the highlighted fire test switch. Okay, now put the spring-loaded fire test switch in the up test A position and keep holding it up to test the A circuits. To do this, place the mouse over the fire test switch and hold down the right mouse button. Keep holding the mouse button down and do not release it until it runs through all the fire test audio warnings. In addition to the audio warning,
We will now do the same thing for the B circuit. After waiting 10 seconds, place the mouse over the fire test switch and hold down the left mouse button to move the switch in the down test B position. Keep holding it down and then release it once all the fire warning audio messages have been played. Well done. Press spacebar. Good job. Note that in the top left portion of the IFE, you can see the RPM and temp of both the left and right engines. These will be important for when we start the engines. We will now turn on the auxiliary power unit, or APU. This is a small, self-contained engine that augments the bleed air system and will start turning the engines for engine starts. Place the APU control switch in the up or on position with the left mouse button click. Once the green light next to the APU switch comes on, move the engine crank switch to its right position, marked by the R, with a right mouse button click. This will allow the APU to power the Air Turbine Starter, or ATS, which in turn allows the Aircraft Mounted Accessory Drive, or AMAD, to start turning the fan blades within the right engine. Once the right engine RPM has reached 20%, as indicated on the IFE, move the right throttle from off to idle by pressing right shift home. This in turn will introduce fuel into the engine combustion chamber and start the igniters. Once the right engine RPM has reached 60%, the right engine start cycle is complete and the right generator is automatically engaged. Once at 60%, press spacebar.
Roll left. Flight controls. Flight controls.
When we conducted the tests of the A and B fire test circuits, we also closed the bleed air shutoff valves. We need to reopen these by rotating the bleed air knob clockwise 360 degrees, from norm to norm. Do this by right mouse button clicking on the outer portion of the knob. When done, press spacebar. With the right engine running and generator power on, place the left and right digital display indicators, or DDIs, to the day position using right mouse button clicks on both brightness selector knobs. Next, rotate the HUD symbology brightness control knob clockwise by placing your mouse over it and rotating your mouse wheel forward. Once you see video displayed on the left and right DDIs and HUD, press spacebar. In the lower center of the instrument panel is the multi-purpose color display, or MPCD. Rotate the power and brightness control knob to the full bright setting by placing your mouse over the knob and rotating your mouse wheel forward. It will take a few moments to power on. Press spacebar once you see video displayed on the MPCD. On the left DDI, press the menu push button to bring up the support page. The support page has several sub-pages like the checklist, engine, fuel, ADI, and HSI. For now, though, press the FCS push button to select the flight control system page. The FCS page shows the status of the control surfaces and any detected FCS errors. The X's indicate detected errors, but we will address those once the left engine is started. You should not see any 2, R, or FADEC caution messages along the bottom of the left DDI. Note that by default, you will not have the built-in test or bit page on the right DDI. We'll come back to this. During this lesson and future lessons, you will often see and hear the master caution. This is the large yellow labeled button on the instrument panel that will light when any caution condition is triggered. There will also be an accompanying deedle sound to draw your attention. Press this button or click on it to acknowledge the caution and extinguish the light. Press the master caution again to restack the caution and advisory notices along the bottom of the left DDI. Cautions will be along the top and advisories in smaller text along the bottom. If the left DDI is not on, then the caution and advisories will be displayed on another display. By default, though, they will be on the left DDI.
The FA18 comes equipped with an inertial navigation system, or INS. Use right mouse clicks to set the INS switch located on the sensor panel to the G&D ground position. This will start an
Now it is time to crank the left engine. Go ahead and move the engine crank switch to its left position, labeled L, by left mouse clicking it. Once the left engine is at 20% RPM, as indicated on the IFE, move the left throttle from off to idle by pressing right Alt Home. This will add fuel to the engine and start the igniters. When the left engine is at 60% RPM, press spacebar to continue.
Roll left, roll left. Flight controls, flight controls.
On the FCS page, we have quite a few X's indicating abnormal FCS readings. To clear these, press and hold the FCS reset button. Located in the back of the left console is the panel for the onboard oxygen generation system, or OBOGs. Go ahead and set the OBOG switch to its up-on position. To the left of the INS switch is the radar switch. Set this switch to the operate position using your right mouse button. Don't worry, the radar will be in silent mode. You won't microwave the ground crew. Our next step will be to run a bit on the Flight Control System, or FCS. Before doing so, set the flaps to the up auto position with the F key or 2 right mouse button clicks on the flap switch. We'll now run a bit of the Flight Control System. This moves the control surfaces to their limits to test for any software or mechanical errors. First, select the FCS bit page from the bit page on the right DDI. To run the FCS bit, we'll need to activate 2 controls at the same time. While holding up on the FCS bit switch on the right wall, press the FCS push button on the right DDI. Upon doing so, you'll see the controls being cycled on both the FCS DDI page, and if you look outside the cockpit, you can watch the wing and tail control surfaces moving. Once the FCS bit is complete, marked by the beep tone, place the flap switch in the center or half position with the left mouse button click on the switch. Takeoff is done with flaps set to half. Once we're airborne, we'll move them to auto. For takeoff, we will want our stabs trimmed for 12 degrees. To set this, press and hold down the takeoff trim button. Upon doing so, you will also notice that the stab values on the FCS page will change to 12. The leading edge flaps, trailing edge flaps, and rudder should all have values of 30 degrees. You should also have no X's on the FCS page. Uncage the backup ADI by placing your mouse over the SAI cage knob and rotating the mouse wheel aft until the red flag is stowed. Close the canopy by holding the canopy control switch in the down, close position until the canopy is closed. Do this by pressing the key combination or placing the mouse over the switch and holding down the left mouse button. Once the canopy is closed, press spacebar to continue. At this point, the INS has been aligned as indicated on the MPCD HSI page. Move the INS switch from ground to nav with one right mouse button click on the switch. Prior to taxi, press the menu push button on the left DDI to go to the TAC or tactical page. On the TAC page, you have access to sub-pages like the store's management system, attack radar, HUD, and electronic warfare pages. On the left DDI TAC page, select the HUD push button to display a mirror of the HUD on the DDI. This can be useful when head down or in case of HUD failure. Let's now set up the right DDI. Press the menu push button on the right DDI to bring up the tactical page. Press the menu push button again to bring up the support page. Now on the support page, press the FCS push button. We will want the HUD on the left DDI and the FCS page on the right DDI when we taxi and take off. The parking brake system is operated with the yellow and black parking brake handle. The handle is currently in the park position, indicated by the fact that the park label is visible to the pilot. Release the parking brake now by rotating the handle 45 degrees counterclockwise from the extended position. This can be achieved by left mouse button clicking the handle or pressing the right Alt-P key. This will release the lock and allow the handle to return to the horizontal stowed position, where the Emerge label is visible to the pilot.
This concludes the current lesson on starting up the FA18. As mentioned earlier though, there is also an option for automatically starting by pressing left win home. You can end this lesson now by pressing the escape key. In this lesson, we're starting in an up and running FA18, and we will learn how to taxi to the runway and take off. Before we taxi out though, let's set up a few more items that we did not cover in the cold start lesson. Press spacebar when ready.
During low-light operations like this evening, place the landing and taxi light switch in the up-on position. Now, set up your position, formation, and strobe lights as you desire. The formation lights, or slime lights, are low-intensity green lights that aid in close-in formation flying. Position lights are red and green lights that mark the left and right sides of the aircraft, and the strobe are two flashing red lights on the tail. When done, press spacebar. Time to set up your internal lights. The instrument dial controls instrument panel lighting. The console dial controls the lighting on the left and right consoles. The flood dial illuminates the forward section of the cockpit, and the chart dial controls lighting of your lap area. The lights test switch will test all cockpit warning and caution lights. The warn caution dial allows you to adjust the illumination of those lights. The mode switch allows you to select default internal lighting for day, night, and night vision goggle use. Experiment with these and press spacebar when ready to move on. On the altimeter, rotate the pressure setting knob with the mouse wheel to set an airfield pressure elevation of 29.90 atmospheric pressure. Press spacebar when it's set. To steer when taxiing, we will use the nose wheel steering, or NWS, by pressing the S key, or the NWS button on the control stick. When engaged, as indicated by the NWS indication on the bottom right portion of the HUD, rudder inputs will steer the aircraft left and right. When the NWS button is held down, nose wheel steering high, or NWS high, is enabled and allows a tighter turn radius. This is quite helpful on a crowded carrier deck. To get rolling, slowly increase the throttles until you have forward movement, but do not exceed 75% engine RPM. Press Z to steer left and X to steer right. Taxi forward to the runway directly ahead. Keep taxiing forward and practice both normal NWS and NWS high steering. Come to a halt just short of entering the runway by using the toe brakes at the top of the rudder pedals. Before entering the runway, arm the ejection seat by moving the ejection seat safe armed handle on your right in the down position so that the armed label becomes visible. Also, tighten your restraints. Check left and right for traffic. Increase engine RPM and enter the runway. Once on the runway, align the aircraft down the center line and come to a halt on the 25 runway heading marker. Press spacebar to continue.
On the right DDI, confirm that the stab position is set to 12 for both stimulators. While holding down the wheel brakes, increase engine RPM to 80% and check that temps on the IFEI do not exceed 800 degrees centigrade. In an FA18-C, you always take off an afterburner. Release the brakes and push the throttles all the way forward to full afterburner.
As you roll down the runway, keep aligned down the middle with very small rudder inputs.
Keep a small amount of backstick and the F-18 will automatically rotate and fly off the runway.
Raise the landing gear by moving the landing gear control handle in the up position. Then, raise the flaps by setting the flap switch to the up auto position. Congratulations, you have just taken off. You can end the lesson now by pressing the escape key. A key part of any mission is the ability to navigate to and from the target. Two such tools are automatic direction finding, or ADF, and tactical air navigation, or TACAN. ADF uses VOR stations located throughout the maps to get bearing-only information to them, and TACAN stations are co-located with many airfields, aircraft carriers, and some aerial refuelers. TACAN can provide both bearing and range, or just one of them depending on the source and TACAN mode used. In this lesson, we will discuss how to select ADF and TACAN navigation, and the steering information provided. I currently have the lesson paused as we first discuss a few items. Press spacebar to continue. For this lesson, we will be using an ADF example and then TACAN to navigate back to our home training base at Kobuleti. Let's start with the simpler ADF. To start, let's first select the Horizontal Situation Indicator, or HSI, for the left DDI. Press the menu Time push button on the left DDI to bring us to the tactical page. Note that this button will indicate menu when on the ground, but will show time when airborne. Let's press the same push button again to bring us to the support page. Now on the support page, press the HSI push button. The HSI is your primary navigation page that will display TACAN, waypoint, and ADF navigation data. In the center of the HSI is an aircraft symbol that represents your position from a top-down vantage. Your true airspeed is to the left of the symbol and ground speed to the right. Centered and around the aircraft symbol is a compass rose, and on the very top is a louver line that indicates your heading in regards to the compass rose. Along the top of the HSI is the SCL, or Scale, push button. Consecutive presses of this push button will cycle through the scale range options of the HSI. Press spacebar to continue. An ADF is assigned to a specific frequency, which can also be stored as a preset on one of the two radios. In this case, we have the VOR ADF near Kutaisi Airfield preset as Channel 2 on Radio 1. Right now, Radio 1 is set to Channel 1, as you can see in the Channel Select window for Radio 1. To select a new channel preset, place your mouse over the Radio 1 select dial and rotate the mouse wheel forward until 2 is displayed. When you do, you will soon hear the characteristic ADF identification code for that VOR station. Press spacebar to continue. To display the bearing to the VOR station on the HSI, we need to set the UFC ADF function select switch to Radio 1. To do this, right mouse button click on the switch. With that done, you will now note a small circle along the outside of the compass rose at the 1 o'clock position. This is your bearing to the ADF signal. There is no range information though. As you can see, ADF is quite simple. Let's move on to TACAN. Press spacebar when ready. In order to display all TACAN information on the HSI and HUD, press the TCN or TACAN push button on the HSI. Upon doing so, it will be boxed. Now we need to turn on the TACAN and set the code of the desired station. Press the TACAN button on the UFC. With the TACAN now selected on the UFC, we have three choices in the option select windows. TR is transmit receive and will provide both bearing and range guidance. RCV is for receive and will just provide bearing to the station. And AA is for air to air and will provide either bearing and range or just range depending on the aircraft. By default, we have TR selected, which is fine. The lower two option select windows allow you to select either an X or Y TACAN channel. For example, 67X. Now let's turn on the TACAN by pressing the on-off button on the UFC. On the scratch pad, we now see that the TACAN is on and a default value of 1. Select Clear on the UFC keypad to remove this. We will navigate to the TACAN station at Kobuleti Airfield, which has the TACAN code of 67X. Enter 67 on the UFC keypad and then press the Enter button on the UFC. After entering 67X and pressing Enter, press spacebar. With the TACAN station now selected, we have some new information on the HUD and HSI. On the right side of the HUD, we have the range to the station in nautical miles and the 3-digit code for the station to the right of the distance value. At the top of the HUD, along the heading tape, we have a steering bar that indicates the heading to the TACAN station. On the HSI, we have much more information. In the top left corner of the HSI, we have a data block with 3 rows. The top row is bearing, distance. The second row is time to go in minutes and seconds. And the bottom row is the station ID. On the outside of the compass rose is an inverted triangle with a T in the center. This indicates your heading to the station. There is a corresponding tail on the other side of the compass rose. Between the aircraft symbol and the T symbol is a 3-pronged symbol that represents the selected TACAN station. Press spacebar to continue. When a TACAN station has been selected, you can use the course set switch, labeled CRS, on the top right corner of the MPCD to set a course line that is centered on the selected station. Left click rotates the course line counterclockwise, and a right mouse click moves it clockwise. When a course has been set, the course line will be displayed on the HSI and on the HUD, with dots to represent 4 and 8 degrees of course offset. Press spacebar to continue. When a TACAN beacon is selected, you will also hear the coded ID. You can adjust the volume of this with the TACAN volume control knob labeled TCN on the volume panel. Press spacebar to continue. You can view airfield TACAN beacon channels by going to the F10 map, clicking on an airfield, and then reading the data of the airfield. This concludes our look at the HSI, ADF, and TACAN. When you are ready, press spacebar to unpause this lesson and practice navigating using the ADF and TACAN.
While TACAN navigation is a great tool to get back to your airfield or carrier, many times you will need the ability to set arbitrary navigation points. This is where waypoint navigation comes in. The FA18 allows you to have 3 sequences of waypoints that you could use to mark anything from a turn point, a target, or to a threat location. Waypoints can be created in both the mission editor and while in the cockpit. For this lesson though, we will focus on a waypoint sequence already created. I've currently paused the lesson. Press spacebar to continue.
Let's first set the left DDI to the HSI page. Press the time push button. We are now on the tactical page, so a press of the time push button again will bring us to the support page. Now on the support page, select the HSI push button. This will display the horizontal situation indicator. Much of this will look familiar from the TACAN lesson. Instead of pressing the TCN push button though, press the waypoint push button this time. This will box waypoint and allow display of more waypoint navigation information on the HSI and HUD. We are currently at waypoint 0, as indicated on the right side of the HUD and between the up and down arrows along the right side of the left DDI. Press the up arrow to select the next waypoint, waypoint 1. With waypoint 1 selected, note the distance to the waypoint, and the waypoint number is displayed on the right side of the HUD, and a steering bar to the waypoint is along the heading tape. On the HSI, you can now better see the waypoint marker that appears as a small circle with a dot in the center. By pressing the SEC1 push button, it will box it and display dashed connecting lines between the waypoints in the selected sequence. In the top right portion of the HSI, data of the selected waypoints is shown. The top row is the bearing and distance to the waypoint, and below is the hours, minutes, seconds to the waypoint. Inscribed inside the compass rows is a triangle that indicates the heading to the selected waypoint, with a corresponding tail opposite of it. Press spacebar to continue. As with TACAN, you can also set a course line through the selected waypoint. This can be useful by placing a waypoint on a runway and using the course line for a direct approach, or as a reference for the downwind leg of an overhead landing pattern. Press spacebar to continue. By selecting the Auto Waypoint Sequence option, the navigation system will automatically select the next waypoint in sequence as each waypoint is reached. This avoids having to manually select the next